All right, so to review Photoshop, we're going to open up the Photoshop program. It looks like this. It's also located in your Launchpad, in your app location there in the app folder. When you get into Photoshop, you have two options, like we talked about the other day: creating a new document or opening an existing document. And some of your recent files will be located down here at the bottom of the splash screen or the start screen. You can hide these build your skills things by clicking the up arrow. Makes those go away, and it just shows more of the files that you're working in. Anyway, we're going to create a new file again, and you should have a recent item over here that says 1000 by 1000 pixels at 72 ppi, pixels per inch. That's the one that we created the other day we were working with. If you don't have anything in this area, you can set your pixel area to, or your setting right here from inches, change it to pixels first. That way it's not a gigantic number. And then you're going to change the width and the height to 1000 and 1000. The orientation does not matter, but it just needs to be 1000 by 1000 pixels. That's the important part. That gives us a little square. The color mode is RGB. The resolution is 72 pixels per inch. And you can name this if you'd like to. Mine just says custom right now. If I want to name this our normal artboard or whatever, board, document, whatever you want to name it, hit create. It comes up here, our normal document at whatever, 100%. That means I'm zoomed in 100% right now. So if I went down to our file new to try and make another one, I could find that on here and it would automatically reopen that same exact thing. But you can find it on the left. Anyway, yesterday, what we looked at, or the other day, what we looked at was locating the brush tool. The brush tool has a shortcut of the letter B. And so if I was on a different tool, the lasso or the marquee tool, I could press the letter B on the keyboard, and you'll see that it automatically switches down here to brush. It jumps up, marquee, brush. So if I click on the brush, my context toolbar across the top changes. We looked at changing the size, the shape, and the hardness of our paintbrushes. It starts off as a circle. You can see my paintbrush out there on the artboard. If I adjust the circle here, those two dots, this changes the dimensions of that circle. So now you can see the shape of that is changing on the board as well. I can also change the angle. I can move it from to whatever angle I need to use for whatever application I'm doing. I can change the size. You'll notice that this does not change, but when I come out here onto the board, that paintbrush is going to change size. And if I draw, you can see it's a lot bigger than it was before. We can also change the hardness of the brush, and I'm going to bring this down to about 100. There we go. And if I have 100% hardness, it is a nice solid thick line, thick edge, solid edge, nice and sharp. If I take it down to 50% on the hardness and I swipe, it's going to start to have a fuzzy, blurry outside edge there. And finally, if I go down to a 0% hardness, it's going to have a very blurry edge. Something we didn't look at yesterday was zooming in. And on the Mac, if you hold on the Option and then use two fingers on the trackpad and swipe up, it's going to let you zoom into the board or zoom out of the board. So it depends on which way you go. So you press Option and hold it down, and then two fingers will allow you to zoom in and out. That helps get you closer to whatever you're doing. I think you can also pinch. So if you use two fingers and you can pinch the screen bigger and smaller as well. Something else we looked at, you notice that my colors here are yellow. Down here in the bottom left-hand corner, we have our color selection. This shows our foreground color, or the color that the paintbrush will draw. This shows our background color. We can swap these two by pressing the letter X or clicking on the swap arrow here. And then if I want to take it back to the default colors, I can press the letter D, or I can click on the black and white. So if I was out here and I want to take it back to black and white, I just press the letter D on the keyboard. It's back to black and white. Now I'm drawing in a 0% hardness brush that's the same size and dimensions and everything as the other one. I just default it back to my black and white colors. If I would like to choose a new color, I can click on a foreground or the background color. It's going to choose the color picker or open the color picker. I have a selection from red to blue on this and back again. I can make my selection on the ribbon, and then wherever I stop, I can choose inside of this this area to choose anything from white to black, the grays in between, or any saturation or hue of the selected color on the ribbon. So if I choose this color of blue, now you can see that my foreground color is blue and my background color is white. There's my paintbrush. Something else we looked at yesterday was the eraser tool, and the eraser tool is just below the brush. It is the letter E shortcut on the keyboard, and it will erase either to a transparent background or whatever the background color is on your color area. So the eraser tool doesn't erase things or make them go away. It paints the background color. And so to explain that and demonstrate that, if I go here to the eraser, you'll see that my paintbrush, it's too big. There we go. Get down to about 100. And because I have white on the background, when I swipe on here, click and draw, this is going to look like it's erasing whatever the material is. But what it's actually doing, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. What it's actually doing is it is painting the background color. So if I swap these, if blue is my bottom color here, and I start to erase, because I'm on the eraser, it's going to erase to whatever that background color is. So if blue is my background color, if you hit an erase and it does not do what you expected it to do, this is why. It is erasing to whatever that background color is. I can choose a different color. There's a green. Now, because green is my background color over here, when I draw, it's going to put green on there. And it's not drawing, it's erasing to whatever the bottom color is. I can do the same thing in the brush if I swap them. If I want it to be white, I can swap those colors, and then, see, now I'm drawing with green, same color green, different brush. But since green is the foreground color, it's going to paint on there. If I swap them and now I'm erasing, I'm drawing the white, drawing whatever color that is. So the eraser doesn't erase, it just draws the background or the bottom color on that list. So something new on here, up at the top, to the right of the paintbrush area is... There are two selections here. Number one is the opacity. The opacity, if it's at 100, it is going to be, let me change my brush here so it's 100% hardness. There's the opacity. If I am drawing with a green color here, if I change the opacity of this brush, what it does is it actually creates a percent of transparency. So there's 68%. If I draw it now, you'll see that it is lighter shade. It's the exact same color, but because it has 68% transparency, it's going to be a little bit lighter. And so this one is just a little bit, it's 34% opacity, and so it's a little bit lighter. If I draw once and click and hold and I draw some stuff, you can see that this is the color because of the opacity, the transparency that it has. If I click again and do it again, it's going to add more. It doesn't matter how many times I go over this thing while I'm holding my trackpad or my mouse button down. But if I stop and I do it again, it's going to add another layer of that 34% opacity until eventually it gets up to, it took a whole bunch of clicks, but eventually it got to be the same color. And so this is just doing the transparency. It lets you shade in things on your artboard when you're drawing. So you can change the opacity. The other one you can change is the flow. And the flow is like a spray paint. Let me come over here. That's a normal 100% flow. If I change this down to 50%, you'll notice a difference in the brush. See, it has more, it looks like a stack of circles right there, but because it has 50%, it has that extra edge on the outside there. If I pair that with a 50% hardness on the brush, it's going to look more like spray paint on the board than it did before. So, and I can adjust this flow down quite a ways, and you can see what it does to the coverage. I have to make sure that I'm make all this stuff go away. There we go. So there's 50% on the hardness and 10% on the flow. You can see that not much paint is coming through or not much color is coming through. If I swipe it a couple times, it's going to come through a little bit more. And this one is not like the opacity, where the opacity, as I am drawing, it is staying the exact same level. But because the flow, it's going to be more like a spray paint can. Every time you go over top of something, it's going to add just a little bit more to whatever that is. So, two things there. Okay, I'm going to zoom back out again. Make this go away. Okay, back to a white screen. Now this next one is pretty cool. There's a butterfly on the top right. This is on the brush still. There's a butterfly up here in the top corner. And when you click on the butterfly, it's going to give you a different selection of options here. And this is called the symmetry tool. And what this lets you do is it will create a line, and then you can draw in one of the areas, and it will do the exact same thing on the other side. So just so you can see what this looks like, I'm going to do the dual axis. It's a up and down, left and right axis there. So if I zoom out on my board, put this kind of in the middle, and you can see my guides are snapping there. I have a red one that made sure that this thing is exactly in the middle. When I press the enter key, it's going to leave this like that. Just so I can show you what this looks like, I'm going to change my brush a little bit. I'm going to bring the brush down to like that 5 to 10. Sure, that'll be good. I'm going to use a round brush, and I'm also going to use the black color. So now if I'm drawing up here in this side, it's drawing the exact same thing on all 4 quadrants. If I go across a line, it's going to work into that one and do the exact same stuff. So you can create some pretty cool designs. You can see it takes a little bit of a processing power to make this thing happen. It's still trying to reconnect all my lines there. Just take some computer power to make this whole thing do what it's supposed to do. There are other ways. You can Command Z to undo stuff. I get rid of these. If I change my symmetry to a circle, Press enter. If I'm inside the circle, it's going to do the same thing on the outside. I can draw all over the place, and it looks kind of crazy. If I choose like the mandala here, I can choose how many segments I want to have. I'm going to have 6. I'll hit OK. And I might even change my brush. So the brush tool is a little bit smaller. And this one, and after I get done, after I let go of my mouse button, it's going to finish up the drawing there. There it goes. So if you've ever played with a spirograph, with a pen and the little gears, and you put the gears in and draw it around, very similar to that, where you can draw one thing and have a lot of different options. So there's that. I think it's pretty cool. I hope you guys enjoy playing with this one. Those are just some of the basic tools we have in Photoshop. And our next lesson, this is the introduction part, and then the next lesson, lesson number 1, oh, I guess this is lesson number 1, but lesson number 2, we'll start with some different tools, and we'll be looking at using the art history brush to change how things, how your picture looks, and I'll do a whole demonstration on that in the next one. So if you have any questions, let me know.